Good evening, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more participants, and then we'll begin our webinar. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'll before we begin the session, I'll just quickly play a video about the TechBee program. Please check out your screen.
Student and dreams to enroll in a reputed college for her graduation. Vasu is doing his graduation from a reputed college and dreams to get an assured job in a renowned MNC. As a father, you dream for your child becoming financially independent, but are worried about the college fee. Students can achieve their dreams right after class 12th. Turn your dream into reality with HCL TechBee Program. Visit hcltechbee.com and apply now.
Hello. Thank you. Hi, welcome everyone. So today we have Subbaraman, who would be joining this webinar today. And my name is Sahil. I'm from the marketing team. And so today the guest for this webinar is Subbaraman, and I'll just add him to the stream. So he is the vice president of strategic initiatives at HCL Technologies. He manages the P&L and establishes strategic partnerships with our clients, our partners, and even our service providers. He heads the skilling as a business initiative under the HCL Training and Staffing Services, and he's also a member of the CEO club, about which I myself am very curious. So I'll have a question about that as well later on. Uh, Subba is a veteran in HCL. He spent over 25 years, which we celebrated earlier. A month back, I think. Uh, that's a lot. And just to give you a perspective about how long that is, I am 25 years old of age. So the years Subba has spent in HCL is just mind blowing. Uh, Apart from that, Subba is a part of multiple business conferences. He's the chairman of Confederation of Indian Industry, Madurai Zone. So that's just a gist about Subba, and welcome, Subba. I'd like you to introduce yourself so that you can give the audience a bit more about yourself, by yourself.
Sure.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sahil. A very good evening, one and all assembled here for this webinar. I know it's a warm Saturday evening and probably rainy Saturday evening in many parts of India. I hope you all are staying well, staying safe amidst this pandemic and the lashing rains that are going through across the length and breadth of the country. Yes, you're right. I've been with HCL a bit over 25 years now. Very interesting journey. There have been lots of discoveries, lots of learnings, lots of um, new initiatives that the organization has been going through right from the time we were an R&D shop to how we transformed ourselves into a services organization, from there into how we got to discover, kind of rediscover ourselves in the product space, and as an organization, the kind of initiatives that we've taken to embark on this journey to build new products for the world. It's been a mind-blowing journey that this company has had, and very happy to have been a part of this exercise uh, thus far. And I'm sure it's going to be even more exciting, even more.
Definitely. So before we dive into the TechBee program, Subha, I just quickly would love to, know more about your experience and your life at HCL. So I'd love to know how it all started. How did you, come to HCL? How has your career progression been at HCL since, as I said earlier, it's been 25 years. So how did it all started? How was it HCL then, 25 years back, and how it's been now? Uh, if you could answer that for me.
Sure, sure. So HCL was one company where, I mean, which many of us aspired for. Back in the days when I finished my college didn't have anybody to come by for campus recruitment. So in our batch, we were the first folks. As our batch, we went out hopping from one company to another company, printing our resumes. In those days, they were called cyclostyling. You might not even be aware, many of you. So it's like the equivalent of what you do as Xerox today, right? As kind of photocopy. We used to make bunches of these and supply them to the various companies. Some of them would accept, some would say, no, we don't have any opening. And that's how we kind of got into these companies. Then we met some of the HR managers and asked them, saying, would you be able to come by to our campus? We have like so many students studying here. Would you like to conduct a campus interview and so on? So after many such repeat journeys from our campus to Chennai and Bangalore and kinds of places, some companies started coming in. And one such company at that time that said that they would come in was HCL HP R&D. That's how, that was the name of the company, HCL HP R&D. And because we were, I mean, having only a few companies come by and a small lot of us, we wanted to pick and choose the companies where each of us applied for. And I said, I will apply for this company only. And there were many others that came in prior. So a lot of us were going through, I mean, are you going to get a job or not? It's HLHP R&D going to come into a campus or not at all? Finally, it did come, and I got selected, thankfully. And it's been a wonderful journey because of those days when I joined the company was working on core R&D, right? What you call is the Unix operating system today. This company had built its own Unix operating system back in the mid 90s. That was the group that I joined in. So this company at that point had built in their own database management systems, their own huge, big Magnum servers. I mean, today we're all used to only some desktops, rather like huge servers that this company had built in, and that was the group into which that I had joined at that time. And from then on, I mean, there's no looking back. This probably was the only interview that I've ever given in life, I should say, for a job. Um, if you're going to go ask me to go apply for another one, I think it's going to take me a while to get prepared. That's how this company has been. And once you come in, this company knows how to keep you well, right? As
Right.
long as you contribute well to this company, it's a great place to be at.
Definitely. I myself can vouch for that. It's not been long, but then whatever time I've spent, it's been good. So, I mean, I can definitely answer to my next question, but I'd love, and you've already answered some bits and pieces of my next question, but I'd love you to uh, elaborate on it a bit more. So, what is unique about starting a career at HCL? I mean, what stands out while we're talking about initiating their one's career at HCL?
It's a very interesting question. So if you look at it, when you, I mean, when somebody joins, you're probably in the today with the TechBee program, you are 17, 18 years old, or in those days would have been into the early 20s. Now that's the time when you got a lot of ideas, a lot of creativity, right? There's a lot of energy in you where you want to go experiment, discover things. Now, this company has been a company which is promoted. My little understanding, will be very easily up north of 200, 250 CEOs across the world. That's what this company is. So what it really does is it allows you space to go try out new things, be it on the technology side, be it on the business side, be it on the process front, any which dimension. It allows you to try, experiment, and the best is it allows you to fail and learn from the failure. Only thing is, failure can be only once for that particular problem. You're supposed to be learning from that failure, not repeat that mistake again, right? So as long as you stick to these rules, then it's a phenomenal place, because all of us right from our youth, we have so much of ideas, so much of energy in us that we want to give shape to, give thought. The thoughts that there in us need to come to some form of fruition, which we want to, which we aspire to see in a form, right? So, which means it could be writing a new operating system. In fact, in my early on days, I wanted to write my own compiler. In fact, I joined this company as a project trainee. And coming fresh out of college, I said, I want to write a compiler. And then they called me and said, boy, compilers don't make business anymore. I said, but then I want to give it some shape. And they allowed me to do a project where I had the opportunity to write my own interpreter, very close to a compiler, right? So I defined my own computer language, and then on that language, for that language, I wrote the interpreter, and from the interpreter, I wrote the application. So post this, I went on to work with operating systems, the Unix operating system. That's how I began. So starting the journey, coming back to your question, starting the journey in an organization like HCL has it plays a big difference to one's forward movement, right? Kind of propels you technologically, propels you from the standpoint of willing to experiment. It gives you a lot of courage. See, many of us sometimes, by how we've been brought in our cultures, um, typically find it difficult to take risks, fail, because in our culture, typically, if you may, failure is a taboo. Nobody likes to see us fail, right? We always want to be seen as those success machines. But this is one place which will allow you to discover, allow you to experiment, allow you to fail. But then that's once you
Right.
fail on something new, which is okay, right? So, in my view, starting in an organization like this to begin with will be a phenomenal setting, like never again anywhere else types. That's how
Right.
I would sum it up, Sahil.
So you had said that you brought a concept and you got to work on it. So from what I understand, the entrepreneur concept is definitely not new. It's always been there. It's just the formalization of giving it tags and everything. It's always been there, from what I
Yes,
understand that way.
yes, very, very true. Very, very true. Rightfully
Yeah.
said.
So, as I said earlier about the CEO club part, I mean, so outside looking in, we always were curious how it's been, what is it like to be a part of, and uh, of course, I also want to know how your journey has been being a part of the same. So, if you could, uh, answer that briefly.
Sure. I mean, CEO Club is just a few things, right? It's about you daring to make a difference,
Right,
you doing what is right for the company,
right,
you proving that you're willing to get into uncharted territories, never mind what comes out as the results, but
right,
yet achieve it. I mean, there have been quite a few of these, right? I mean, there was a time, I think, back in 2007, 8, if I recall. In those days, music albums, CDs and tracks were the typical forms in which music was sold. And they were large players. And I still recall the time when my business unit was going after this segment to enhance business there. So we said, look, of course, we have our own technological prowess, but it's important to showcase our domain prowess, understanding of the music industry, and we have to create what will sell well in that industry. So we
right,
created what was called an artist 360. So typically, in those days, for stage events and live shows, artists had their own um, big presence. But what happened was beyond that, music was always sold as CDs and labels, if you recall, right?
right,
So we said we should now try and change this and make a proposition back to the large players like the EMIs and the Warner Music and Universal Musics as well. Said we will create an artist 360 where we keep the artist in the center and look at like whatever possible monetization mechanisms around the artist, be it in terms of time, be it in terms of stage shows, be it in terms of records, albums, be it in terms of royalties, whatever else. I mean, it can be a stand-up show where they end up partnering with, can be a ticketed event. Multiple of these came together. Now, when we pitched this, it turned out to be a great interest catcher amongst these companies. The companies started understanding that HCL was one company that can really come and make a difference. We started getting quite a few um, bids, quite a few business projects, and we started enhancing from there. And similarly, we tried to do in the broadcast and cable space. I recall 2009 and 10, right, where we created something called a smart viewer. So where I had to lead the thinking, both that and this, and post that and a few other domains as well. Smart viewer at that time, the way I kind of conceptualized was, we said, I mean, if Sahil was to go to the couch at the end of the day, sit there and wants to watch some content on television, I'm talking about 2009, the television should automatically kind of understand what are Sahil's preferences at like 7 p.m. in 7 p.m. on a Friday evening or a Saturday evening, and automatically turn the content on the television or kind of make these recommendations. So that's the amount of intelligence that we wanted to bring onto the so-called set-top box or the device that was covering the content, right? This is back in 2009. This became a big success. So, I mean, all these kinds of small point solutions helped us make a difference. Now,
right,
why this is important is if you try and relate to, I mean, as a CEO, the business is yours. The landscape is what you end up defining, right? So you define the landscape, you define how you want to enter into that landscape, how you want to venture in. Again, no matter what happens in the results, I mean, to you, the organization would still be measuring you, but
right,
make those bold moves, make those bold propositions into the market are the
right.
biggest takeaways or mantras that we followed all through, and such people end up being recognized in the company, right? So,
Definitely.
and you would see that such people would be looked up for uh, new opportunities every time the organization wants to do something new, different, never done before types. such would be the kind of people that will be there in this in
Right.
those
Definitely.
activities. So being a
Definitely.
part of the CEO journey, CEO club means that, right? Of course, I mean there are a bunch of paraphernalia in terms of how you get recognized, which is very nice. But to you as a human being, what does it mean? Is this right? It's kind of the characteristics of you being there, putting your ideas to execution, thoughts to execution, and you being empowered by the company. So
Right.
typically, if you want to go start a business outside, what happens is you got to have your idea, you got to have the process defined, you got to have teams that enable you, you got to have the right folks within your teams, you got to have
Definitely.
the right sales partners, you got to
Mhm.
drop everything. There are different support points that might come from the rest of the organization. So you could get choose your own board of people who can guide you, who can act as your mentors, right? So
Right.
all
Right.
that available within the organization, but it's for you to go and ask. It doesn't come to you
Definitely.
by itself automatically.
Definitely.
Once asked, you will see that you will get it. That's what I want the viewers of this webinar to take away from. This is an organization which can make anybody a CEO. That's the amount of potential that exists in this organization.
Definitely. And I think we as an organization definitely promote that. I mean, uh, the concept of ideapreneur, as I was saying earlier, came, I think, from this thing itself, that the organization wants us to have ideas and bring them to the table. Uh,
True, very true, very true.
so let's just dive into the the topic of discussion today. That's the TechBee program, and I recall Sanad was having conversations with Shiva and Ambika, and they brought how it was envisioned. So in this webinar, I'd like to ask you something else. So TechBee has been running for 4 years now, and we have new TechBees joining, and we have TechBees who are with us for the last 3 years now. So 4 years now. So how has our experience been in terms of hiring them and then having them working with clients? From both the perspectives, I'd love to know how it's been.
It's kind of funny you asked me this question because we started this TechBee program in my region here in Madurai back in 2017. When we wanted to get into the market, we actually went into the market searching for very bright young folks who were kind of gems, right? Looking for those hidden gems who have the spark in them. Been into various remote locations in the country looking for those sparked gems. Many a time parents ask, it's all about parents, right? Only a little bit in those days, 4 years back, where students ask these questions. So parents would ask me, would this job be stable? Would you pay salary on time? Will there be work, or are you just recruiting? And tomorrow you look for placements, because if you recall, people were used to seeing such recruitments where you would typically tend to be said there's a job that's coming in some Dubai or some place, and I'm taking your child away for such things. So we want to tell them, no, it's nothing to do like that. This is all about intelligence, and if your son or daughter has the metal in him or her, then this is the right place. And we showed them. Sometimes we kind of brought them to our centers, brought them to our offices, showcased them what this is, put them through the grind. So, there were quite a few apprehensions on the side of the tech bees and the parents, right? Would you pay the stipend on time? Would you teach them? Because I mean, some parents you say, look, we're not from a family who speak or understand English for that matter, because we said the medium of instruction is English. But one important thing that you got to have, or your son or daughter need to have, is the ability to understand English. The ability to comprehend is very important, because that is one thing that we started looking for, and even today we look for it very actively. Um, from then, we in fact considered looking to see if we need to have some of our skilling sessions in vernacular languages, but then we chose against it because we said, end of the day, they have to go face the customers who are all global, and there's no Indian customer for who they're being prepared for. They're all being prepared to innovate, to contribute value, to service our global clients, which means English is the common language that they need to be prepared to deal with. So that was one thing. Second was on technology, where we said we'll bundle all appropriate technological elements that are required for the job. So we put the job as the fulcrum, and we put whatever is required around the job. It could be, like I said, technology, it could be language and communication, it could be an understanding of the culture, depending on where he or she was going to go get to work, as to which customer. Let's say if it's a customer in Europe, then the nuances of how you deal with people in Europe. I mean, there are different parts of Europe that behave differently, and for each of them, we try to provide the orientation, right, during our last part of the skilling process. Be it in the process front that's required to perform the job, help them get a view of what is the day-to-day job like, right? Help them practice the day-to-day job. So conceptualizing this one-year program, putting it into a form where it becomes more like a factory itself was one challenge that we went through. And today, I think it's come of age very, very well. It's quite well received both by the parents as well as by the students. Now, coming on to the other side as to where these children will get to work. I mean, I wouldn't want to call them children because they turn into young adults who will use their creative part of their minds and the industry in them to contribute a service back to our customer. Now, our customer is very, very apprehensive. When I say a customer, could be anybody. It could be somebody who's working on healthcare, somebody who's a large manufacturing client, or somebody who's doing aircrafts, somebody who's doing aircraft services, technology within aircraft, somebody who would be doing semiconductor manufacturing, a whole plethora of a range of customers, somebody who's doing retail and so on. They all had different apprehensions. Initial days, they had their own apprehensions on technology, right? We said technology is no-brainer. These days, children come with a decent understanding, plus our one-year program gives them enough room to get it addressed. And then came the aspect of ability to communicate, because what happens is when we graduate from school, higher secondary education, into college, that's the prime part of the youth where each of us go through our own transformation, our own understanding of how we should behave, how we should speak, what amount of politeness we should carry, what amount of humility we should demonstrate. It's kind of the defining phase or the making phase in one's lifetime. So what we did was we kind of brought in behavioral sessions, we brought in life coaches during this period of 1 year, and we said typically what somebody would go through in a college, we tried to crash within a year's program through these supplemental systems and enable the students to be ready to face off customers. So customers got a lot of confidence, but they were still a bit apprehensive, saying, would they be able to talk to us boldly if there was a problem? Because many a time in most parts of the Indian culture, you would see people are afraid of speaking up. There's a problem, if something is not going right, they're afraid of speaking up and say, hey, this is not right. Because traditionally, in our Eastern thinking, we are made to say, never question elders, never question seniors, right? Going away from there, Western customers especially want our employees who work on their systems to go to them, speak up, question the thought process on its core value, if it meant the value that it brings, see if it's meritorious, and then help them take it forward. So the first year was a bit of a learning year, I would say, and then from the second and third year, it got very, got quite improved. Customers today love these people because they, like I said, are in the prime years of their lives. They're very outspoken, most of them. They're very comfortable in telling something if it's not working well, if it's not the right technology, if it's not the right solution to a particular problem, and so on. And many of the problems that have been existing so far in the past, people, whoever have conceptualized solutions, they've been very traditional solutions. Now, the solutions that these TechBees are coming out with are kind of progressive solution. Like, for example, I think I need to talk about one thing here. So there was this All India contest that we did during May, June of last year, right after COVID, the first wave of COVID onset in India, where we said you could define your problem and you will have to come out with a solution, make it kind of at least first level ready solution. And there were many entries, thousands of entries that came from various parts of our employee groups across the world. And for India, it came from, again, hundreds others. In fact, I think 1,000 plus. So there was this one entry which came in, which said from a sound recording, an audio recording of one's cough. Because in wave one, if you recall, wave one of COVID, cough was the primary symptom. So there was this particular person who turned out to be a TechBee, who's still working with us, a very high contributor to the company, who said, look, I will record the cough as a sound file, and I will use about 60 parameters: the intensity, decibel, the depth of the cough, the duration, the frequency. I mean, there are like many parameters which even I found it hard to understand at the time when he explained it. And then he said, if you do this, the degree of certainty of identifying if somebody is COVID positive or not was X percentage confidence. It was a brilliant idea. Whether or not it's accurate is a different thing. Now we've taken it through the process to try and make it a formal solution. And if it works out well, then we'll get the relevant approvals required. But this is innovation, right? So children turn into young adults and come into the TechBee programs, carry such things which not only help the company, forget the fact that it helps the company, more importantly, it helps the society at large. It helps our customers, who in turn are solving problems for our societies, for the respective societies that they're living in. And that's where such innovation will come in very handy. So to come back to you, a summary of how we see TechBee 4 years ago versus today, I think it's a big shift, Sahil, if you may, that we see. From the days when we had to get into each and every village and explain this program, we used to call them to the local chopal type chowtries where people came in, and we met with them in hundreds numbers those days and explained what the TechBee program was, why it is important to get your daughter or son into this program. From there, today it's become a lot of it digital. Of course, we're still doing some outreach across India for this. In fact, there's a proposal to take it outside India as well. There are some experiments that we're conducting. It's such a very powerful program. The market which is servicing likes it. The market which is being serviced, as in the customers, like this program as well. It's that amount of maturity that it's gained.
Definitely, Subha. I mean, the anecdote which you gave about the COVID experiment, uh, it's I definitely agree that it's more to uh, bring the idea to the table than the final. Of course, the outcome is definitely important, but then the just bringing idea to the table, which a lot of older generation people were hesitant about, and even my generation people, they would be hesitant to bring that to the table. But these uh, just out of 12th 18-year-olds, that ability that they have is just commendable. uh, so thanks for that. Let's get into the next question. This next question comes in a lot, and of course, the times that we have of COVID, people are uncertain. So we get a lot of would we get a job once we've completed the TechBee program, and so there's a lot of uncertainty, especially given the time. So if you'd like to address this question.
Oh, question on would we get a job at all, or is it just a
Yeah,
skilling program? Is that the
it's
question?
would we get a job after completing the TechBee program?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's a very important question, very pertinent question, especially coming from the children and aspirants of the TechBee program and their families. Um, Something that you all should be aware of is HCL has gone into this only knowing that it needs so many people for jobs. So if the job is not there, we don't get people inducted into the company, right? So which means when we recruit you, we pretty much know which job we are going to be skilling you for. If we don't know, we would not have given you an offer letter, right? So that's the amount of assurance that we have. So which means anybody that we have made an offer letter to, that we've given an offer letter to, is guaranteed of a job, subject to they clearing the skilling and the other criteria that I mentioned, part of the program. So if you do it successfully, you have an offer for the job right away. And the details of the offer are anyway there, I mean, out on our webpage and been there for many years. It's been the same. It's not changed much all through. The answer is yes, there is an assurance for a job, provided you satisfy the requirements for the program.
Yeah, thanks for answering that, Subha. I mean, we answer this question time and time again, but it's just the times and the impatient and sometimes given the time. So it's fine to just reiterate sometimes for these candidates. Uh, So the next question is, and this again we have discussed in the last webinars, that how is a B.Tech graduate different from a TechBee graduate. But I'd also like to have this aspect of a day in a life of TechBee scholar, and how that would differ from B.Tech graduate or a B.Tech student rather, or a BCA student for that matter. So how would a day in a life differ in both the cases?
I will split this question in two parts.
Sure,
How will
definitely.
the day in life differ in the first 1 year
Right.
and later? In
Right.
the first 1 year, it's all about skilling. I'll split the 1 year into two parts. There's a primarily classroom part, where we say you're part of a larger audience that are going through skilling for a particular job role, and you're in class either virtual because today it's COVID and not many can come into offices that easily. Otherwise, it would be in person. So people go through this so-called classroom skilling. Of course, there'll be a lot of lab exercises again, which are online and virtual in nature. During the classrooms phase, typically about 8-9 hours per day is what they get to spend. About 5-6 hours on core technology process skilling, and the remaining 2 to 3 hours they spend on behavior, they spend on communication, they spend on um, um, abilities like culture, understanding culture, varied cultures, and so on. So this is typically what happens. Of course, there are a bunch of daily quizzes, weekly quizzes and assignments they'll have to submit, upload, which get graded, and people are given marks, beyond which they go, more like stage gates, beyond which they go to the next stages. Now, the second phase of this is called the on-the-job training or internship, as we call. In this internship, it's like this. So I go work very closely with my seniors. The job is known. Because the job is known, there is somebody who's a senior who will guide me, who will tell me what I need to do. So sometimes in the pre-COVID era, it will be like if I'm the TechBee, I'll be watching over the screen of my uh, senior to see how he she is doing for like 10 minutes, where she is teaching me, and then I go sit down on my computer and try and replicate these processes for like next 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever. Learn from that, come back and report to my senior after like 2 hours how it went, or at the end of the day and say how it went, through what I learned from it, what I did not learn from it, where I found challenges, and so on and so forth. So during this time, what are the things that I get to learn as a TechBee on any typical day would be, I learn the specific of the technology, though the generic of the technology would have been taught in the classroom, the specifics of how it's being implemented, how it's being adopted in this particular customer environment, because we are a services organization, right? So primary set of people that are going out into services, and within that, each organization could be a retail customer, a client, it could be a manufacturing client, a broadcast client, a media and entertainment client. There are many, so have you, right? So in each of these environments, the adoption of the technology, the combination of technology varies, so the last mile learning happens there. Second is the deep down understanding of the domain. Like I talked about the music example and artist 360, right? Understanding what happens in a music industry, right? Understanding what royalties mean, what albums mean. Even today, many people do not understand what an album means, what a band means, what a track means, what is saleable, what's non-saleable, how it gets accounted for, how it gets, what are the different subsystems that exist within that particular music company's IT portfolio. When somebody looks for a new, let's say, track to be bought, today people can buy tracks and even portions of tracks, right? If that is to be bought, then where does the request come, to which subsystem, which IT system, where is it hosted, right, on the back end, what technology is the application written on, where is it stored, how does it get retrieved, what's the time delay, what's the process duration, what are the nuances of checks, what do they ask for from the client that's buying that particular portion of the track, and so on, right? All these are last mile learning which happens during the internship phase. So which means you kind of get baked in for that particular job, which you are being skilled for. The third stage is the employee stage, which is like as good as anybody else. But one difference being a TechBee is you would continue to have coaches assigned to you for some time. So should you have any questions, you can always go back and ask them, hey, I'm feeling stuck here, how do I go forward, right? So there are these coaches that are out there to help you, which not necessarily exist with others.
Right, right, definitely. So while you've already answered, some of my next questions answers in the last one, that skills, some skills you've spoken about. So would you, can you elaborate on the skills and the languages, if any, which are covered in this TechBee program?
Um, okay, so skills, meaning there are skills to, I think you should have given me a list of questions, Sahil. I would have probably made specific responses to each of those, and then we wouldn't have had this overlap. So if you look at it, the skills, right? I mean, there are some skills that are trainable during classroom. There are some skills that are trainable, that are imparted only during the internship period. Now, uh, the specifics of the job get imparted only during internship. Like, for example, somebody might say, look, I want to be a cybersecurity expert, right? Or the organization might say, we want to train you to be a cybersecurity expert. Now, what cybersecurity expert is, you'll get trained on SSL, PKI, you understand how public key infrastructure is in the world, in the country, in the geographies that typically you would end up working on, and so on. But how it gets adopted, how the certifications work, the key certifications, like when you say digital certificates, how does this get translated, or if it's to do with encryption or locking, unlocking, security, the protocols there, how does it get adopted within that particular client environment is something that gets taught during the uh, 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 OJT, or the
Yeah.
internship. Now, are there any single skills or two skills that we get to teach? There's really nothing that I can put my finger on and say this is
Right.
what we'll teach, because we'll end up teaching, skilling people on what the IT environment of our customers want. See, we have
Right.
like hundreds of customers globally, and every IT environment is different. It's very easy to kind of throw technologies and languages saying Java, Oracle, this, that, but those are just like three out of like 3,000,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I would rather stay away from saying what are those technological skills that we'll get to teach, or the languages that we'll get skill people on, because it'll really vary basis what the job roles are and what the in the client environment. Like I said, one music customer might be using a completely Microsoft stack. Another music client might be using, let's say, a Java stack, right?
Right.
Somebody else might be using SAP for all their management. You just never know, right?
Right.
So it all depends on the end customer environment, and for which job within that end customer environment the TechBee is being identified for. Basis that we'll end up teaching. So
Right.
those specific technologies are what we get to teach.
Right. Definitely. So just to add to your point, uh, just to give a perspective to the audience we have today, if we were to name each and every skill, we'll end up spending the entire hour that we have today
That
discussing
won't be
those
enough.
skills.
That won't be
Yeah,
enough.
I'm sure that won't be enough. Definitely. So that's that, and we discussed earlier that you've spent 25 years at HCL. So uh, anybody, I mean, most people who join HCL, they would eventually would like to be at a senior position, at a leadership position such as yours. Uh, how does the career progression would look like for a TechBee scholar if they want to aim for a senior leadership level?
So this company, I mean, I've only worked in this company, and I can talk only about this company, right? So if you look at it, this company will give you the right breaks if you show the inclination, the urge to learn, urge to contribute, urge to be true to the organization. If you always demonstrate that you're doing what is right for the organization rather than what is right for me as an individual, or right for my boss, right? Rather, what's right for my company. If you get to focus on that, if that is the attitude that the TechBee wears, right? I would think in like 15, 20 years, they could probably become or get to play roles like what I am playing today. It doesn't need to take so much time as well. So the focus is ability to demonstrate, um, expertise, ability to demonstrate courage, ability to take risks,
Right.
being fearless. Being fearless
Right.
is key.
Right.
If you do that, there are technological paths either on, I mean, there are growth paths either on the technological front. You could become, let's say, a technology expert in one, let's say within Java, you become a Java, let's say, a professional, then you become a solution architect, getting to learn about things around Java. And then tomorrow, when there's a new customer that comes in, and for that customer, you want to implement an IT environment, you try and give the technology solution. It could be on the project management front where you get uh, try and deliver very complex projects. Now, when I say
Right.
complex projects, it's not just about IT. A project could be a holistic project where IT is a small component, software is a small component. It could include hardware, it could include logistics, it could include government interfaces. There are some projects that we are part of where we get to do such complex, we call systems integrations projects, multiple interfaces. It's a skill. I mean, it's like the nearest equivalent that I can think of is something like a metro rail project.
Right.
Humongous. Metro rail project involves acquiring the land, getting the legal clearances, talking to the public, giving them kind of compensation, right? Doing the technical infrastructure, working on raw materials. It's like very, very complex, and yet put all these together within the short time available. Likewise, getting into that project management is another thing. Third could be, let's say, some of these tech bees could end up becoming business leaders, like what I mean, roles that I'm playing. You look for new business areas where you can get this company into, um, steer the organization into these uncharted territories. Could be some
Right.
charted territories also, but uncharted solutions, right? Untried solutions. You could try and provide untried technologies, untried processes. You could try and get some of these new that you get to do, and you enhance efficiencies in the business. So that's another track. It could just be a horizontal track where you just specialize in one technology area or one practice area, and you become an expert in that area for life, which is also
Right.
there. Like, for example, let's say you would want to become somebody who's associated with only Google related technologies or only cloud environments. So any kind of cloud technology across the world, you could try and become an expert in that. I mean, you're not into multi-technology, you are into just cloud technology, or you could just
Right.
be into cyber security as a technology. So there are a whole plethora of options that exist. I mean, some of you can try and get into business writing, some of you can try and become experts in requirements management. There are multiple of these that do exist.
Rightly. Yeah. Rightly said, Subha. I mean, the verticals that we have, I mean, we can't name those verticals as well in an hour. So uh, there are multiple options that these candidates can get into. So we'll take the last question as we have to close it at 5. And this question would cover everything, as in the process from the filling of the application form to commencement of the training, because we get these a lot that when will this happen, when will that happen. So if you'd cover the journey that a candidate would go through from filling of the application form to their commencement of the training, how much potentially how much time that will take and how that will look like for them.
Very, very interesting, because we are going through a bit of a transformation ourselves in this space, right? Um, 4 years ago, when we started, we used to do paper forms. Today, we have gone into paperless forms and technologies,
Right.
right? And really no paper forms types. So that's where we are moving. So once you get into submit your interest or application in the system, within typically 2 or 3 days, you must be called for an assessment. An assessment includes, primarily is an assessment on your abilities to think, abilities to perform basic arithmetic, aptitude, basic English. So it's like very general aptitude. So that's the online assessment, runs for typically an hour plus. And there are both proctored as well as auto proctored. When you say auto proctored, because of COVID, like this, you can sit in front of a camera and the camera will proctor. It'll find out if you are aligning yourself, if somebody is helping you, and so on and so forth. Or you could get into any of our test centers and try and have this test given. Now, post this, the results would come in the same day or the next, at best. At worst. And post that, if you qualify, you'll be called for a learnability assessment. Now, what we call as learnability assessment is we try and see if, as TechBee, you would be ready enough to understand what's going to be taught, what you're going to be skilled on, because we know the kind of jobs, and we have a set of like 250, 300 assessors, learnability assessors as we call, who are the only ones who would come on the video with you and try and assess on various parameters if you are ready enough to learn. You could be a very high scorer in your 12th standard, but that's only one part. It only talks about an ability to replicate what you already have learned, but can you learn new things, right? So this assessment will take place. This could take anywhere between 2 days to a week's time. Sometimes I'm seeing it takes about 2 weeks because of some candidates availability, but typically 2-3 days can get done. That's the cycle time. And from that, once you clear that, then you go through HR, where you get an initial offer, and subject to you uploading all the documents and everything, which could again take anywhere between 3 days and a week's time, maybe a max of 10 days, because some candidates we get to see do not really understand what some documents mean, and they need a bit of counsel, a bit of follow-up and calls. Post that, the offer goes, and from the date of offer, within like 3 to 5 days, they could do the initial fee payment for the program, and they can be ready or be certified to be onboarded for class. Now, classes begin on designated days. We have a calendar published, internally, where we know when we're going to have which class, right? Because that's when the job requirements exist. But because of COVID and the impact that we have, there is some variability here because of availability of students around the dates that we have in mind. So you would see that it moves a bit here and there. Sometimes it also has to do with bank loans, because to pay these the tuition fee for this, some candidates might opt to have bank loans, and there could be additional days with the banks. But in all, if I look at it, you could do it in as fastest as 15, say 17 working days, as latest as 2 months, 2.5 months, right? Between the time you apply and you start classes, maybe 3 months. It depends, but it all depends on how quickly you as a TechBee respond, how quickly you understand what's asked by the organization, you upload the documents, you get to do the bank formalities, then the laptop dispatch, if you opt for a laptop, or if you bring your own device that's compatible to the learning requirements that we have, then that process can be shortened as well. So in all, anywhere between 17 days and about 2.5 months is what I would think.
I think we are getting most of these questions because of COVID itself, because the times are such that everybody's at home. Most people have nothing to do, so maybe that's why they're more and more curious to know. So I'll quickly address the questions we are getting about the fees and everything. So eligibility, how to apply, all that information is available on our website. that is on your screen. That's www.hcltechbee.com. You can go. You can get all this information on the website, and once you apply, our counselors will be there to help you with your further steps. So you need not worry about that information. That's already available on our website. Uh, that's pretty much sums up this webinar, Subba. Thank you. I'll quickly play a video, and then we'll let you go.
Sure, no problem. And let me take this additional 5 seconds to wish all the tech bees the very best, and also wish you and your family stay safe during this COVID time. Stay well. Thank you.
तीस जनवरी 2020 भारत में पहला कोविड-19 केस और फिर शुरू हुआ अनिश्चितता का दौर। लाखों दुकानों दफ्तरों में ताले, स्कूल कॉलेज बंद। इसका सीधा असर उन लाखों बच्चों पर पड़ा जो 12वीं कक्षा की पढ़ाई पूरी करने के बाद एक उज्जवल भविष्य का सपना देख रहे थे। वो बच्चे नहीं जानते थे कि आगे क्या करेंगे, उनका भविष्य कैसा होगा, नौकरी मिलेगी या नहीं। लेकिन इसी साल कई लाख बच्चे ऐसे भी थे जिन्होंने HCL TechBee के लिए आवेदन किया और चुने गए बच्चों ने HCL Technologies, जो कि भारत की बड़ी टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनियों में से एक है, के साथ अपने करियर की उड़ान सुनिश्चित की। अब भविष्य को लेकर इन बच्चों के मन में हौसला है, डर नहीं। HCL TechBee HCL का एक अनूठा करियर प्रोग्राम है जो 12वीं के बाद सीधा HCL टेक्नोलॉजीज के साथ काम करने का मौका देता है। यही नहीं, HCL के साथ अनुभव हासिल करते हुए इन बच्चों को बिट्स पिलानी और शास्त्रा यूनिवर्सिटी जैसे नामी संस्थानों से हायर स्टडीज करने का मौका भी मिलता है। इस साल कोरोना महामारी दोगुनी ताकत से आई है और हमारे देश के 12वीं के बच्चों का करियर एक बार फिर अनिश्चितताओं के दौर से गुजर रहा है। क्या आप भी उनमें से एक हैं? तो आप क्या चुनेंगे? ग्लोबली रेप्यूटेड आईटी कंपनी के साथ एक निश्चित करियर या अनिश्चितता का एक नया दौर? फैसला आपका है। HCL TechBee प्रोग्राम में आज ही आवेदन करें और अधिक जानकारी के लिए www.hcltechbee.com पर जाएं।
So that was a video about TechBee program. Thank you all for staying with us today, and thank you Subba for being with us today. It was great learning more about TechBee program from you. Thank you. So have a great day, everyone, and we're just closing now.
Thank you, Sahil. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and a great weekend. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing some or many of you in HCL. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.